Hello everyone, welcome to our audiobook channel. If you enjoy this story or want to hear more exciting content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Your feedback helps us improve and bring even more captivating stories. Enjoy listening. Chapter 1: A Life Like Death. The sun slowly rose in the Guangdong province of China. In a complex of abandoned apartments scheduled for demolition, an alarm was ringing at 6 a.m. in the morning. The sound was coming from an almost broken down apartment, a door you couldn't close properly no matter how hard you pushed, with a chair behind it in a 45-degree angle acting as a lock for the door. The apartment was medium-sized, around 80 cm, yet it was almost empty inside. A bed mattress was in the middle of the living room along with a small-sized table with an alarm clock on it. On the side of the room were 10 big water bottles along with some packs of instant noodles. A body could be seen moving under the blanket that was covering the mattress, reaching for the alarm clock on the table. Ugh, that person groaned after he tapped the alarm clock once. A malnourished body revealed itself from underneath the blanket as it slowly rose from the bed. A young man seemingly around 16 to 17 years old rose from the mattress as he walked towards the bathroom. The water was cut off since the apartment was abandoned, so the young man couldn't even take a shower in the morning. He grabbed a half-empty bottle of water from the table with the alarm clock on it, and used it along with his toothbrush to wash his teeth, and when he finished, he then gulped down the rest of the water from the bottle. Then he grabbed his work clothes from the table and put them on as he left the apartment. It was around a 20-minute walk from the apartment complex until he reached a huge construction site with a lot of warning signs of danger and work in progress. As soon as he walked towards an 8-story half-finished building, the young man heard a voice from behind him shouting, "I rock." The voice belonged to a 45-year-old man. "Good morning, uncle," said Rock. Of course, Rock wasn't his real name, but a nickname given to him by the people working in the construction site with him, as he didn't like to talk that much. Rock didn't have a real name from his parents, he was an orphan, and he grew up in a house complex owned by the government for orphaned children. The government sends food to those houses once a week, but it wasn't enough for the kids there to feed themselves. The orphanages were all full, and that's why the government created these houses and sent food to the children, but a lot of them still died due to hunger or illnesses, as there was no one to take care of them even when they were ill. Rock stayed there until he was 12. He could fight the other children for the food, but even then it was not enough to feed himself, so he decided to leave. He attended junior high school in a public school not far away from the house he lives. It was school in the morning and construction work in the afternoon. Usually people in the construction sites didn't allow kids at work, considering it was illegal, but due to the low wages, few people went to work at those construction sites, and since lower manpower equaled slow production, the construction manager accepted even a kid like Rock with skinny arms and legs, and allowed him to work there, for a pitiful amount of money as his wage, of course. Rock wasn't dissatisfied, as he would finally have enough money every month to feed himself at least. This situation occurred until Rock graduated from high school, but he never stopped working at the construction sites as that was his only way of income. It would be a lie to say that he didn't feel aggrieved. Even working for his food in construction sites without proper security measures was considered normal to him nowadays, but he still hoped deep inside that his luck would change one day and his life would take a turn for the better. For the past half a year that Rock has been working on this construction site, this uncle has taken care of him plenty of times, either by sharing with him food or drinks, or taking care of helping him during work when needed. Needless to say that Rock felt extremely thankful to this man, and he also helped him during work whenever possible as well. "Ha kid. I knew you wouldn't bring breakfast with you again. My wife gave me extra again today, so let's share it together." As soon as he finished his sentence, he grabbed a plastic bag and took out 2 big water bottles along with 2 sandwiches and 4 rice balls. He split them at 2 portions and gave one to Rock. The man knew Rock wasn't one to accept charity so easily, so he said, "Hey kid, we have to eat up to start working, you still need to take care of me as this job is really dangerous, so eat up." Rock still didn't respond, until the man spoke again and said, "You will treat me to drink again when you get your wage, okay kid? Let's eat." Then without even looking at Rock again, the man started eating the food. Rock didn't say anything, but he also started eating, keeping this gesture of this man deep inside his heart. This middle-aged man was the only one who had ever shown any form of care for him, in the 20 years of his life, and Rock would never forget this kindness. After they finished their food, they started their daily work, but little did they know that this would be the last day of Rock's life. Chapter 2: Death and Life. Rock and the middle-aged man were among the first ones to come to work every day. The man's wife was pregnant for 6 months and his child would soon be born, so he had to work hard to make ends meet, both for his wife as well as his unborn child. Time flew and soon, noon arrived. Rock was about to finish with the 5th floor and take a break for a few minutes to rehydrate himself, since working under the scorching sun for hours was never good, especially with a body as weak as his, when coincidentally the middle-aged uncle also stopped for a break. They started descending the half-completed stairs that connected the 5th floor to the 4th, and they had to cross atop a wooden plank to reach the 4th floor. While they were walking atop the plank, a huge rumbling sound and a tremor started to shake the entire building. Who could expect an earthquake at the worst possible moment, especially one of such magnitude that started shaking the entire structure of the building down to its foundations? Rock saw the middle-aged uncle walking unsteadily to the other side, terrified of the earthquake that was taking place, but before he could get to the other side of the plank, his right foot slipped as he lost his balance. No! Just as he was about to fall down and crash, from the 4th floor directly to the ground, Rock rushed from behind and pushed him using all of his strength, causing the middle-aged man to almost fly to the other side, saving his life with that push. Just as the man landed on the other side, even more intense rumbling came from the gap above Rock's head. A huge mass of debris buried him to the ground and half of the building itself collapsed. The middle-aged man starting to roar and cry, and as soon as the rumbling stopped and the opposite side of the building collapsed while the one he was on miraculously stayed intact. He ran down as fast as he could and used his bare hands to remove the pieces of rock, glass, and concrete that buried Rock. But it was pointless. The debris was practically a tower at this point, since half of the building had collapsed. It was already a miracle that the other half stayed standing and didn't fall along with it. The middle-aged man was still crying, his hands bloodied from the pieces of glass stuck in them, but he was still removing the debris hoping to save Rock. He felt so guilty that the kid exanged his life so he can stay alive. He kept going until the other workers came over and stopped him. Rock had seen the debris fall on his head and understood exactly how unlucky he was, as this was practically certain death, yet he didn't regret saving the man. The middle-aged uncle was the only one who had shown care for him, and the thought that went through his mind as he was being buried by the rocks was, it's good since uncle lived. But it's truly unfair that my life will end like this. The rumbling continued for a while and Rock's vision turned dark as he blacked out. Rock tried to slowly open his eyes as his mind started to regain its consciousness, only to discover that his head was about to split apart from a terrifying pain he was feeling. He started wailing left and right as he couldn't feel anything other than the splitting headache that was about to rip his mind apart. What Rock hadn't noticed was that his body wasn't buried under any rubble or debris, but was lying on the ground with his face up, on a patch of red grass, right in the middle of a huge thunderstorm with thunder and lightning striking the ground all around him. The bones on both his arms and legs were broken, his head bleeding from behind, and his clothes were tattered and full of blood. There was a huge wound on the left side of his chest, probably made from a sword or a saber judging by its size. Luckily for Rock, it was still a few inches away from his heart. He felt as if something was forcefully being stuffed in his brain, but there was not enough room for it to fit and his brain was about to burst. Just as a bolt of lightning was about to strike his head and end his life for the second time today, a space tear appeared above him as the lightning was swallowed and disappeared inside it. At the same time, a stone slowly left the space tear in the air, and as soon as it appeared, heaven and earth suddenly fell silent. A few miles away, the people of Blue Forest City had all gone still. Pedestrians were frozen mid-walking, people inside the restaurants were frozen while they were chatting and laughing or eating, stall owners haggling to sell their merchandise were immobilized, and even the fire in the taverns and the food that stall owners used to cook, were all in a frozen-like state. Bolts of lightning all around Rock were stopped in place like a painting in the air, as if the very heavens themselves were afraid to move the moment that the stone appeared. The triangle-shaped stone released a blindingly bright azure light that destroyed the black clouds and the bolts of lightning frozen mid-air around Rock, along with everything else in a radius of 1 mile of Rock. Rock suddenly felt the change in the environment around him and finally opened his eyes, forcibly suppressing the head-splitting pain he was feeling, which had slowly started to ease, only to see a blue-like light from a triangle-shaped like stone right above the space between his eyebrows, plunging itself right inside his head. Chapter 3 Shun Long. As soon as Rock's eyes met the stone immediately plunged itself right into the space between his eyebrows, bringing a pain so unbearable, that if you could compare the pain he felt previously to a small stream of ice slowly entering and chilling his brain, then this one felt like an entire ice mountain that was about to crush him wholly. Not a single person in the entirety of Blue Forest City noticed that everything was in a frozen state a few moments ago and that their lives had returned back to normal only when the triangular-shaped stone had entered Rock's glabella. However, the most miraculous thing wasn't that there was not even a single drop of blood when the stone pierced Rock's head, or that it had disappeared without leaving behind the slightest sign or even a single scar, but that the body, which was full of injuries just moments ago, was now magically healing itself at an extremely rapid rate. The broken bones on his arms and legs were being glued together by the blue-like glow that was being emitted from the triangular-shaped stone inside Rock's body, easing the pain his mind was feeling and nourishing his body while it was healing all of his injuries. Even 3 badly fractured ribs of his were rapidly healing along with that horrible injury on his chest. The flesh on his chest was healing and mending itself so fast that the whole process was clearly visible to the naked eye in one moment and almost over in the next. Anyone seeing this spectacle would be left with their mouths gaping, as all they would think would be that the gods themselves had come to personally fix that badly broken body to perfection. Even the best alchemist of Blue Forest City, Master Liu, couldn't produce a medicine that could heal an injury like that in the blink of an eye. Forget about healing it in the blink of an eye, even if Master Liu concocted his best medicines, it would still require at least 1.5 months for an injury like that to heal. Don't even mention the internal injuries or Rock's broken bones, as it would be unknown when and if they could be completely healed by such a medicine. Perhaps only an alchemist superior to even Master Liu could possibly bring them back in perfect condition. An incense stick of time went by, and although Rock's injuries, be they internal or external, were fully healed, he had yet to open his eyes. The first time he opened them was when the pain had just started subsiding and a new set of memories started to integrate themselves into his mind. Only then did Rock come to understand that this body of his wasn't the same as the one he had back on Earth. He could see in this new set of memories inside his brain, his own face and body. He didn't have a malnourished body anymore, and although it wasn't burly, it was paired perfectly with his own face and height. His body was 173 centimeters 5.8 feet tall, with a pretty handsome face and sharp defined features. He fully understood everything about his current body and where this new set of memories that appeared in his mind and merged together with his old memories came from, the moment that his headache had finally subsided. This body originally belonged to Shun Long, and Shun Long's father is Shun Fang, a strong formation master of the Sky Fortune Kingdom and the strongest one in the entirety of Blue Forest City. Rock was currently lying on the ground, his face pointed towards the sky as more and more memories were flooding in his brain. His current position was now almost 3 miles away from Blue Forest, the place which Blue Forest City took its name from. The Blue Forest was a very famous place within the Sky Fortune Kingdom. It was the only place in the entire Sky Fortune Kingdom that could be considered both heaven and hell at the same time. It was extraordinary in the sense that a lot of treasures could be found inside it. Medicinal ingredients, rare materials that formation masters needed, treasures to increase your cultivation, everything could be found inside if you were lucky enough. But not just anyone could waltz inside and take these things. People usually formed strong teams before even thinking of going inside the Blue Forest, and even then, the death rate was above 50%. How could treasures be so easy to pick up? People would have swept the entire place clean long ago if it was that easy to take these things from the Blue Forest. Blue Forest wasn't only filled with treasures, but also with powerful magic beasts that lived there, so if you wanted to become rich by adventuring in there and seeking your fortune, you first had to be strong enough. Powerful magic beasts that could kill even the strongest warriors of the Sky Fortune Kingdom were lying in wait deep inside the Blue Forest, having formed their own territories, but some treasures were enticing enough for those people to risk their lives so they can get their hands on them. After all, the most commonly shared thought was, if I can find a priceless treasure and sell it off, wouldn't I be able to live comfortably and luxuriously for the rest of my life? Shunlong had 2 bodyguards with him that had been assigned by his father to protect him at all times, and he took them along with him this time as he traveled towards the Blue Forest. Normally Shunlong would never do something so foolish as to go to the Blue Forest himself, since that was simply asking for death, but this time it was different, as rumors had started to circulate in the Blue Forest city of a precious treasure that could potentially help him open up his blocked meridians and allow him to start cultivating. However, on their way to the Blue Forest, Shunlong's group was attacked by 5 people dressed in black robes and masks, and in the end, both of Shunlong's bodyguards and their horses were killed, and even he himself was almost beaten to death, when the lightning storm appeared in the sky and scared off his attackers, but in the end Shunlong still died to his injuries. However, before his soul could completely dissipate, Rock's soul entered his body and inherited his life memories along with his feelings before he died. Rock finally moved his new body as he sat up from the ground and slowly organized his thoughts properly. After that, he took a deep breath and then exhaled, before saying in a low voice, unknown whether he was talking to himself or someone else, "Your soul died, but your memories and your feelings all live inside me. I am me, but I am also you. I have lived nearly 20 years full of misery and pain, and you have lived 16 years of scorn from your peers." His voice was growing louder each passing second as he continued. "From today onwards, I, Shunlong, will live to become rich, so I will never feel hunger again, never to feel the pain from my past life. This is my oath to the past me. I, Shunlong, swear to live to become strong enough to soar free and unrestrained by anyone or anything, never to be bound and constrained by others. So what if I can't cultivate because of these blocked meridians? I refuse to allow myself to be killed again. From today onwards, I swear that I will rather break than bend in my life. From this day on, I am Shunlong, and this is my oath with both the heavens and the earth as my witnesses." As soon as Shunlong finished venting out years and years of suppressed emotions that could no longer be held back after 2 consecutive deaths, the triangular stone inside him started vibrating intensely, as if influenced by Shunlong's words, when a shocking set of images appeared in his mind. Chapter 4: Monarch's Hourglass. As soon as Shunlong finished his words, the triangular stone inside his mind started vibrating intensely as if influenced by Shunlong's words, and a shocking set of images appeared in his mind. There were no words, only a very ancient set of images that depicted a person without a distinctive face breathing in a strange pattern. At one time the person was taking a deep breath, and then he repeatedly exhaled in 5 or 6 smaller breaths. The scene changed, showing the same person again, inhaling 6 or 7 times in one breath and then letting it all out through 2 smaller breaths. It looked as if that person was trying to follow a set of breathing pattern. The images then slowly changed, and that person stood up and slowly lifted a huge ball-shaped white mountain that had just appeared out of thin air on the ground beside him using both of his hands, and then he slowly lifted it in the air above his head. Everything shook after that, as the scene grew blurrier until it completely faded away and a set of words magically imprinted themselves deep inside Shunlong's soul: Monarch's Hourglass. These words weren't written in any known language that Shunlong had ever come in contact with, neither in this one nor in his previous life, and although it all appeared to be a bunch of indistinct ancient symbols and were even slightly blurry, Shenlong was able to clearly understand that the meaning these symbols formed was Monarch's hourglass, as if it was already something carved in his soul. Shenlong's consciousness returned to his body as he hurriedly looked to examine the back of his head. He clearly remembered being hit at the occipital bone, which is located in the lower back of his head, but not only was there no blood flowing from it now, but there wasn't even a single bump to prove that he had just been brutally beaten to the ground just a few hours ago. The blood that had dyed red that patch of grass he was earlier lying on, had long since vanished from the moment when the triangular-shaped stone had emitted that blue light to obliterate the lightning that was in the air, along with everything else in a radius of a mile around Shenlong. Not just the grass, but everything in an area of 1 mile around him was a barren ground without the slightest vegetation anymore, a stark contrast to the area beyond that, which was full of grass and flowers. It looked as if something had completely erased every trace of life in an area around him, and even the corpses of Shenlong's 2 dead bodyguards and their 3 horses weren't an exception to this. Thankfully for Shenlong, his clothes weren't affected by this, or they would have completely disappeared, but even if they weren't affected by that, they were still in tatters due to the assassination attack from earlier. The robe he was wearing was practically almost destroyed now, as the part covering his chest had already pretty much disappeared, leaving the entire left part from his chest exposed, all because of those vicious attacks he had suffered earlier that looked to take his life. His right sleeve was completely torn apart, while there were multiple sword cuts on the part that was covering his abdomen. Shenlong guessed that the reason his injuries were magically healed was most likely due to the triangular-shaped rock, and he was endlessly grateful to it, or his life would have been over before it even begun. Although to outsiders he would seem to be in a terrible condition due to his clothes, his body didn't even have a single injury on it and was actually full of energy. Shenlong finally stood up, and started running at full speed towards the northeast for half an hour before finally stopping as he was left panting. Blue Forest City was situated at the north of the Blue Forest, and Shenlong had noticed earlier that his assassins were fleeing towards the northwestern direction when that thunderstorm arrived. So although running towards the northeast would take a longer time for him to arrive at Blue Forest City compared to if he run straight north, this was much safer since his goal right now was to stay alive. Shenlong wasn't an idiot, although he knew his assassins would probably not come to find him, as they would most likely assume that he had already died due to his injuries. And even if he somehow wasn't dead with those injuries that they had inflicted on him, he would still die in that thunderstorm. But Shenlong still wouldn't take the risk, as in the off chance that those people returned to confirm his death and ended up finding him alive and well, they would definitely finish the job this time. It took Shenlong 5 hours to reach Blue Forest City, and although the previous Shenlong had lived here for his entire life, this was still the first time for Shenlong, who had only seen the Blue Forest City inside his memories, to lay his eyes on the city for the first actual time. The city's outline was huge, and groups of people were coming and going to and from the city gates all the time. Even though it was already nighttime, the activity in Blue Forest City was just as bustling as it was during the day, with people everywhere on the streets and the taverns. As the city closest to the Blue Forest, its city walls were at 10 meters 33 feet high and 3 meters 10 feet thick, and even if an Earth-rank magical beast came to attack them, it wouldn't be able to shake them in the slightest due to their special formations. Shenlong followed the people entering the city gates, where both pedestrians and carriages could be seen entering, and relying on the memories in his brain, he followed the road leading to his home. People in the city didn't even spare him a second glance, as it was far too common for people to come in the city with tattered clothes, and in some rare cases without any clothes at all, after they had gone to adventure into the Blue Forest. After all, these people wouldn't connect this boy who was wearing cut-down rags to the son of the strongest formation master in the city. After a few twists and turns, Shenlong was still on the main road when he arrived in front of an estate that had 4 meters 13 feet tall walls around it, and 2 strong warriors were standing guard in front of the main entrance. Both of them were probably around 25 or 26 years old, and if Shenlong had started cultivating, he would understand the auras they were emitting, which was at the peak of chi condensation. When the guards saw the young man in ripped clothes approaching, one of the two took one step forward and raised his left hand as he was about to shout halt, with his right hand rested on his sword ready to unsheath it if that person kept walking towards the estate. Shunlong paid no mind to the guard as he kept walking towards the entrance of the estate, and when the guard noticed the young man's face, recognizing that it belonged to the young master, he hastily knelt down on one knee saluting. Just as Shunlong was about to walk through the estate gates, a rumbling sound could be heard from behind him along with an enraged voice that was heard a few meters away from the estate, forcing Shunlong's steps to come to a halt. Chapter 5 Parents. The roaring voice shook the entire Shun estate to its core, and even the servants and the guards inside all hastily knelt down in fear. Outside of the Shun estate, the pedestrians around went pale from fear as a carriage rushed quickly towards the estate's gates. The carriage stopped a few meters away from Shunlong, and the driver quickly reined in the horses and hastily fell on his knees, when the door of the carriage was suddenly kicked from the inside, and ended up flying through the air until it collided with the estate's walls and instantly broke into fragmented pieces of wood and scattered to the ground. From the inside of the carriage, a furious man in his early 40s jumped down, the ground slightly shaking from the impact when he landed. The man was tall, over 1.80 meters 5.11 feet, and dressed in luxurious blue clothes. His facial features were sharp and he had thick eyebrows, his nose was straight and his body build was burly. His black eyes had almost turned scarlet at this point, and his hair was standing on edge from the rage and aura he was exuding. He furiously walked towards Shunlong, each step of his shaking the earth around him, and before Shunlong could react he felt his shoulders being pressured so badly that his bones were hurting from it. The man stared deeply in Shunlong's eyes and then roared at the two guards who were standing guard in front of the estate earlier, but were now kneeling on the ground in fear, in a voice so loud that it could be heard through the entire Blue Forest city. Summon Alchemist Liu. Then the man didn't even wait for Shunlong to speak, as he dragged him to the main hall of the estate and forced him to lie down on a bed that the servants had just brought over to the hall. After he checked Shunlong's body thoroughly for any injuries but not finding anything in the end, the man finally exhaled in relief, as if he had been holding that one breath this entire time. Shunlong hadn't cried in his past life, no matter what hardships he may had suffered, no matter how terrible a pain his previously malnourished body may have felt, but for the first time in his life his eyes turned red as 2 drops of tears spilled from the corners of his eyes. Then, in a voice choked and full of emotion, he finally said one word. Father. A word he never had the chance to utter in his past life, and also a word he had always strongly felt that he would never want to say in his life. Even though the original Shunlong had a deep relationship with his parents, Shunlong now wasn't just the previous Shunlong's soul. An abandoned orphan who had to work for everything his entire life, never having a single person to show him what true family love and concern was like, finally had all his mental barriers broken after seeing the concern and love along with rage in Shunfang's eyes, and he could truly feel that deep affection and care that this man was harboring towards him. Just as Shunfang was about to ask his son what had happened for him to return home in such a state, a beautiful woman in her late 30s entered the hall. As soon as Shunan noticed her son's destroyed clothes, she instantly assumed the worst and rushed to hug him as her eyes instantly burst in tears. Shunlong felt a feeling from Shunan similar to the one he was feeling from Shunfang. Mother, he thought inside his head, and truly felt what motherly love felt like, as he used both of his arms to hug both his father and his mother. An unclocking sound could be heard inside his mind, as an ancient book silently appeared next to the triangular stone in his mind, but Shunlong had no time to check it as his parents both sat in front of him, and Shunfang finally asked, with hints of anger obvious in his voice. I only left Blue Forest City for 8 days, what happened while I was gone? How did my son got hurt so badly, and where are Guyi and Gushi? Shunfang and Shunan both wanted to know how their son ended up in such a state, especially with Guyi and Gushi. Could it be that Guyi and Gushi didn't do their job properly? But they had both always followed Shunlong whenever he left the estate. Father, Guyi and Gushi both died protecting me today, Shunlong said, his voice stone cold, but a hint of furious anger could be discerned from it. What happened? Shunfang and Shunan asked shocked. Guyi and Gushi were both Shunlong's bodyguards, and Guyi was even an early rank 2 Earth rank expert, whereas Gushi was a peak rank 1 Earth rank expert. Even in the entire Blue Forest City, Guyi and Gushi were considered relatively strong experts, which is why Shunfang would have never believed this if this had came out from the mouth of anyone else apart from his sons. Cultivation started from Qi condensation rank 1 to rank 9, and the levels in each rank were divided into early, mid and peak. After the Qi condensation level was the Earth rank, so 2 strong Earth rank cultivators dying was a truly shocking matter. Rumors were circulating that someone in the outskirts of Blue Forest found a red pine fruit. Answered Shunlong. Father, you know that my meridians are blocked and I can't cultivate, but if I could find the red pine fruit and ask Master Lu to concoct the meridian opening pill for me, I could finally start cultivating. Before Shunfang had a chance to interject, Shunlong continued. I know you have always felt bad because I can't cultivate and have also searched for the red pine fruit and other solutions for me. Even if you have never said this yourself, I know it's true, said Shunlong. Shunfang didn't say anything and his face turned slightly red. He didn't want his son to find out, but he had always felt regret that Shunlong was unable to cultivate, so he had always searched for possible solutions both inside Blue Forest City or in the imperial capital. Shunfang himself had ventured into the Blue Forest plenty of times, but so far he had never found what he needed for his son. So this time, hearing that someone found the red pine fruit while you were in the imperial capital, I couldn't stay still, so I asked for both Guyi and Gushi to come with me together to the Blue Forest. After all, my plan was only to search around the Blue Forest's outskirts, and with 2 Earth rank experts accompanying me, the chance of running into danger was truly low. But who could have known that we would get ambushed on the way by 5 masked people wearing black robes, said Shunlong in an angry voice. Shunfang and Shunan understood. If 5 masked people ambushed and attacked 2 Earth rank experts, then most likely the person behind this assassination was someone who wanted to harm the Shun family by killing off their heir instead of just finishing of his 2 bodyguards and then kindly letting Shunlong go. Shunlong explained how these people encircled and attacked their group, and how in the end they got scared off by the sudden lightning storm and ended up fleeing before finishing the job. Shunfang and Shunan were both glad and sighed in relief, thankful for their child's luck and how he managed to escape from such a death trap, when suddenly a guard entered the hall, knelt down on one knee and said, "My lord, Alchemist Master Lu has arrived." Chapter 6. Are you sure? Quickly invite him in, Shunfang said in slight anxiousness. Although he had learned the majority of what happened to Shunlong when he went to the Blue Forest, and despite the fact that his body had no obvious signs of any injury, Shunfang and Shunan couldn't help but worry with fear for any internal injuries inside their son's body, so having Master Lu examine Shunlong was extremely urgent to them. When the doors of the main hall opened again, Shunfang and Shunan stood up while Shunlong remained in a sitting position on the bed in the center of the room. This wasn't because he wanted to intentionally act rude, but that Shunfang had instructed him that until Alchemist Lu had verified that his body is truly healthy and uninjured, he is not to move from his position. Shunlong could feel the concern his parents were showing him, so he couldn't go against their wishes right now. A white-robed young man in his late 20s walked inside the hall. This was Alchemist Lu, a genius of the Sky Fortune Kingdom and the best alchemist in the entire Blue Forest City, while being only 28 years old. "Greetings, Alchemist Lu," said Shunfang while cupping his fists. "Greetings, Formation Master Shun," said Lu Wen as he bowed slightly to Shunfang while also cupping his fists. Alchemist Lu's full name was Lu Wen, and he was known to be a slightly arrogant but extremely talented alchemist. At the young age of 28 he was already a certified rank 2 bronze alchemist. After all, people needed alchemists to help them concoct pills either for their cultivation or to treat injuries, so Lu Wen, knowing that people needed his skills, and were always acting respectful around him, satisfied his vanity and slightly fueled his ego. However, even though Lu Wen was a slightly arrogant person and considered himself to be standing above the others, being a rank 2 bronze alchemist, he didn't try to put on any airs in front of Shunfang, as Shunfang's status as a formation master didn't lose out in front of his status as an alchemist, Moreover, Shun Fang was a peak rank 3 bronze grade formation master, which even made his status higher than Lu Wen's own. Alchemists and formation masters truly were two of the most lucrative and highly sought occupations in the continent, so people of these occupations considered themselves to be standing above the rest. However, alchemists and formation masters also needed each other. Alchemists sold pills that enhanced people's cultivation and could help them treat their injuries, deal with poison, etc., whereas formation masters could create formations around the alchemists' rooms to isolate noise so they don't get distracted during the refinement process, or create defensive formations that could help them protect their homes, but most importantly, they created the cauldrons that alchemists used and engraved the formations inside them that assisted the alchemists with the concoction of their pills. Formation masters also often helped the alchemists with the maintenance of their cauldrons. After all, it was common for alchemists to fail in their concoctions, with their cauldrons occasionally blowing up and harming the formations inside them, so if the alchemists didn't take good care of their cauldrons and the formations inside ended up fading, the cauldron would eventually end up as a useless mass of iron. Formation Master Shun, I heard from your guards that something happened to young Master Shun. Please allow me check his condition. Lu Wen went straight to the point as soon as they finished their greetings. Shun Fang was happy that Lu Wen got straight to the point of his visit, as he also didn't like useless talk, and said, "Please, Alchemist Lu," as gestured for Lu Wen to move towards the center of the hall where the bed that Shun Long was sitting on was placed at. Lu Wen saw the weird appearance of young Master Shun's and was taken aback. Shun Long hadn't had any time to change his clothes, as Shun Fang had dragged him to the main hall as soon as they returned in the estate. Then his Shunan had also entered the hall and they bombarded him with a barrage of questions. By the time he had finished explaining what had happened, Alchemist Lu had already arrived, so it was too late to change clothes now. Lu Wen's sharp eyes could easily tell that Shun Long's clothes were destroyed by some kind of sharp weapon, most likely by a sword, but what he couldn't wrap his head around was this. How is this kid's body fine if he was attacked by sharp swords or sabers when the entire Blue Forest city knows that he can't even cultivate? What Lu Wen didn't know was that Shun Long's parents also had the same question, but before they could ask their son, the guards had already announced his arrival. Lu Wen examined Shun Long's body thoroughly but found no abnormalities. It had to be known that alchemists excelled in using their spiritual strength, and that the most important requirement to become an alchemist was to have a good amount of spiritual strength along with a strong affinity for fire, whereas formation masters could use both their qi combined with their spiritual strength, while the most important requirements for them were a decent amount of spiritual strength along with a strong affinity to control the earth. However, although it may seem as formation masters and alchemists both needed a good amount of spiritual strength as a prerequisite, in reality alchemists needed more than 5 times the amount of spiritual strength that formation masters did. That was because alchemists could use only their spiritual strength when they refined pills, and they couldn't borrow any form of external help like their qi, the same way that formation masters could, so the amount of spiritual strength an alchemist had was paramount to them. Although Lu Wen was only a bronze rank grade 2 alchemist, his spiritual strength was a good 3 to 4 times higher than Shun Fang, and he could directly use it to examine Shun Long's body from the inside. The moment Lu Wen started examining Shun Long's body using his spiritual strength, his jaw involuntarily opened wide. As soon as he finished the examination of Shun Long's body, Lu Wen couldn't help but blurt out, "Are you certain that your son is a cripple?" Chapter 7 What happened? You certain that your son is a cripple? Your son is a cripple. Cripple. These words repeatedly echoed inside Shun Fang's head, and as if a dynamite had exploded, his aura burst out of his body, like a torrential wave that was looking to submerge and drown Alchemist Lu. Even the quiet Shunan frowned as her gaze towards Lu Wen instantly turned icy. Shun Fang hated it when people called his son a cripple. There was an incident a few years back at the imperial capital, when another rank 3 bronze formation master called Shun Long a useless cripple unable to cultivate in front of Shun Fang, and as a result Shun Fang broke that person's legs and ended up almost entirely crippling him. It was only after a lot of people pleaded on his behalf for Shun Fang to let him live, That Shunfang did ended up letting him off, but not before he had finished venting his anger on him. In the end, that formation master was almost crippled with shattered arm bones and fingers and both legs broken, but luckily for him Shunfang didn't go any further, else even if this formation master hadn't died, he would surely have ended up as a cripple. Alchemist Liu knew that what he had said was wrong and that Shunfang would never allow anyone to insult his own son, let alone in front of him, which was why he burst out like that. If Lu Wen wasn't invited by him to check up on his son, he would have already sent him flying in the air with a single slap, but even now, it was still nearly impossible for him to rein in his temper any longer. Shunfang even felt that Lu Wen was almost intentionally provoking him by mentioning his son's matter like that, and not only just in front of him, but in front of his son and his wife as well. Alchemist Liu knew that things were slightly bad now and that he had made a blunder, so he quickly said as he bowed his head as a form of apology in Shunfang's direction while cupping his hands at him and the frosty Shunan behind him. "Please calm your anger, Master Shun, and listen to what I have to say." It was rumored that young Master Shun's meridians were blocked and almost crippled, that he could never cultivate unless he consumed a meridian opening pill or some other heaven-defying pill if he wanted to ever unblock his clogged-up meridians, right? It seemed as if Lu Wen was talking to Shunfang but also to himself, as if he was looking to verify that what he was saying was correct while he continued. "But I have heard that in the past, even Master Fu himself, a rank 3 bronze grade alchemist, had personally come to examine young Master Shun's body and ended up saying that this condition was incurable without special pills like the meridian opening pill, as all the meridians in his body where the qi is supposed to flow from, were all filled with blood, and that was blocking every attempt of qi circulation or absorption." Shunfang didn't answer and just plainly nodded. His anger also had already eased a great deal, but his heart was now aching with pain for his son's condition. "What is your point, Master Liu?" asked Shunan, somewhat irritated. It was obvious that she hadn't forgiven Lu Wen's previous transgression of calling her son a cripple. Lu Wen continued as if he was in his own world right now, his eyes having an absent-minded look in them as he looked at his own hands, almost as if he was pondering something, and after a few moments of silence he continued saying, "There are two things that I don't understand," said Lu Wen as he turned his head to look at Shun Long properly for the first time since his visit. Looking at Shun Long's deep and unperturbed black eyes, Lu Wen's brain kept pondering possible scenarios as his gaze then lowered to observe Shun Long's destroyed clothes, especially the area around the left side of his chest that had almost no fabric left on it. Lu Wen took a breath as if he was organizing his thoughts and then said, "It is obvious that young Master Shun was attacked at some point today. I also normally wouldn't ask why or how someone who is asking for my services got injured, but there are no injuries in your son's body internally or externally. But if that was all it was, then it wouldn't have been that big of a deal, but the most shocking thing is his meridians. Your son obviously has never cultivated in his life, but his meridians right now are completely unblocked and unclogged, free from any blood that was hindering the qi from circulating inside them. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? There is no way your son is any longer a cripple." When Shunfang heard Lu Wen's words, not only did he not get angry at the mention of the word cripple anymore, but his eyes teared up as he turned around to hug Shunan, who was behind him and also started sobbing, their eyes both moist with tears of joy. Lu Wen turned his gaze from Shunfang back to Shun Long and was shocked to see that same unperturbed expression on his face, as if what he had just said now didn't concern him at all, or perhaps Shun Long already knew that and that's why he didn't seem to feel any surprise from Lu Wen's words, and was instead looking at his father and mother with a slight smile hanging at the corner of his lips. Lu Wen was now fighting internally with himself, but in the end he couldn't hold himself back any longer and asked in a voice which fully betrayed his curiosity, "Young Master Shun, can you tell me what happened to your meridians?" Chapter 8, Shunfang's Scheme. As soon as Lu Wen finished his words, Shunfang and Shunan both looked over at Shun Long. They too wanted to know how their son was healed. Actually, Shun Long didn't have to answer Lu Wen's questions and satisfy his curiosity if he really didn't want to do so, but this was still part of Shun Long's plan, so he decided to nod and explain what had happened. His parents were also curious as to how Shun Long had healed, since he had mentioned earlier that his body was originally full of injuries and he was even brought on the brink of death when those masked people attacked him, before they eventually fled the scene. Earlier Shun Long didn't have the time to finish his explanation when Lu Wen arrived at the hall, so he could only postpone it, but since Lu Wen asked, it was the perfect time to present his explanation. Shun Long turned to look at his parents, who nodded at him, and he then started explaining. Originally I was attacked by some people and was left to die bleeding on the ground when a thunderstorm erupted, a few hours ago about 3 miles away from the Blue Forest. Then just as I was about to die, an elderly person that was flying close to me, grabbed me, and rescued me from the storm. When he saw the injuries on my body, he gave me some mysterious pill, and when I swallowed it my injuries started healing instantly. Then after an incense stick of time had passed, my injuries had already healed and not even a scar was left behind. It was truly miraculous. But then the elder abruptly left as soon as he saw that my injuries had healed, and I didn't even have the time to ask for his name as he soared in the sky and flew towards the east. Shun Fang, Shunan and Lu Wen were all speechless. How could this kid's luck be so good? All three of them thought at the same time and didn't even doubt his story, as it made completely perfect sense. So that's how he stayed alive and his injuries were healed along with his meridians. Alchemist Lu was so jealous when he heard this that his face almost turned green from envy. How high level of an expert would that person have to be to casually give away such a miraculous pill to a kid he had never even met before? It had to be known that cultivators needed to have at least reached the heaven tier if they wanted to fly in the air. Chances are that such a person was also an alchemist, since he could produce such a miraculous pill so easily, or at the very least he had to have a close connection with a high-level alchemist, so if Lu Wen could meet such a person and obtain even the slightest guidance from him, his benefits would have been immeasurable. On the other hand, Shun Fang and Shun An's faces went red with excitement. Not only had their son met a high-level expert who had healed his injuries, but that person had also solved the problem that was plaguing their son since his birth. When Lu Wen got the answer to his questions, he sighed in a tone filled with envy and regret, as he turned his sight from Shun Long to Shun Fang and Shunan, cupped his fists and said, "Formation Master Shun, congratulations, young Master Shun will definitely soar in the future now that his meridians are healed. I will take my leave for the night if there is nothing else." Shun Fang also cupped his fists at Lu Wen and said, "Alchemist Lu, thank you for your help today. Accept this gift of mine as a token of my family's gratitude since you came here so late in the night." Shun Fang then clapped his hands 2 times and 2 guards opened the doors of the main hall, with another 2 following behind them, while carrying a big heavy-looking iron cauldron. The cauldron had runes and lines carved on its outer surface, while its lid was made of pure silver. As soon as Lu Wen saw the cauldron, his eyes shone with desire, and he couldn't wait to return to his home and throw away his old cauldron and replace it with this one. Although Lu Wen was a genius alchemist famous in the entire Blue Forest city, his current cauldron was only of rank 2 bronze grade, whereas the cauldron that Shun Fang had just gifted him was already a full rank higher, a pinnacle rank 3 bronze grade cauldron. As an alchemist, he could obviously tell the grade of this cauldron even from a distance. It was said that only pinnacle rank 3 bronze grade alchemists had such cauldrons, and even some silver grade alchemists were using top grade 3 bronze rank cauldrons as well, since finding a silver grade cauldron was truly extremely difficult. "Help Alchemist Lu arrive home safely," Shun Fang ordered the 4 guards that had just entered the main hall. "I also hope that Alchemist Lu will not speak to anyone of today's matters," Shun Fang said casually, but this was actually the most important part of their conversation. Lu Wen was extremely happy and knew that he owed Shun Fang a huge favor for this, as a grade 3 bronze rank cauldron wasn't something you could buy easily, let alone one that was at the pinnacle of its grade. Lu Wen answered, "Please be at ease, Formation Master Shun. I Lu Wen am not that kind of person," answered Lu Wen as he cupped his fists one more time and then followed the guards outside. He also understood what Shun Fang's words meant and knew that he couldn't divulge today's matters regardless. Just the fact that the expert who saved his son, Shun Long, could fly into the air, meant that that person had to be at least a heaven-grade expert. It was also highly probable that that person was also a high-grade alchemist as well, and so Lu Wen couldn't and wouldn't casually discuss such a person's private matters for fear of bringing a disaster upon himself. When Lu Wen left, Shan Fang looked at his son with eyes full of happiness and gratitude as he said, "Little brat, your father knows that your body is all right and I am finally at ease, but you went through a lot of stuff today, so you should go and rest. Tomorrow we will go together and choose a cultivation technique that suits you, ha ha ha." Then without waiting for Shun Long to reply, Shun Fang quickly and happily left the hall with Shunan by his side, both of them smiling happily. The servants were startled to see Shun Fang and Shunan smiling so brightly as they left the hall and headed to their courtyard. Shun Long also followed his memories, and as soon as he left the main hall he started walking towards his own room as well. Shunan suddenly stopped while they were walking and asked Shun Fang in a slightly serious tone. "Although Master Lu came today, he didn't do anything aside from an examination. Isn't it too much to give him a pinnacle grade 3 bronze cauldron as a gift? After all, he wouldn't dare to discuss today's matters that easily, especially when they involve a person who is most likely a heaven grade expert. Did you do it just to make sure that he wouldn't tell anyone about Longer's recovery?" Shunan asked as if she had just come to an epiphany. Although she was a very smart woman, she wasn't as used to dealing with people as Shun Fang, so it took her a while to see through Shun Fang's intentions. But Shun Fang was an old fox and his aim wasn't just that, so he explained to his wife. "Even if it was just to make sure that Lu Wen stays silent, for a matter that involves my, Shun Fang's son, then it would still be worth it. I don't want people to know yet that Longer is alright since he was nearly assassinated today, but I also gave him the cauldron because of Lu Wen himself." Shunan looked at Shun Fang, but she didn't understand what he meant. "Isn't Lu Wen just a grade 2 bronze rank alchemist? Although he is talented, he isn't the best in the entire Sky Fortune Kingdom, and many grade 2 and even grade 3 alchemists would jump in delight at the opportunity to get their hands on such a treasure." As if looking through Shunan's thoughts, Shun Fang said, "Lu Wen may just be a bronze grade 2 alchemist, but that's only for now. It will probably take less than a year for him to reach bronze grade 3. At that time, having a talented grade 3 alchemist help my son when he needs him will definitely be worth this investment." Shunan looked at Shun Fang's bright eyes in shock and asked as if she had just understood his intentions, "Do you mean that you intend for Longer to?" "Yes," Shun Fang answered immediately in a voice full of confidence and a tinge of pride in it. Then he continued, and with a murderous look slowly filling his eyes he said, "If any stray dogs think that they can just come and try to kill my son without any repercussions, then they really are naive. They better pray I don't find who was behind that attack or else." Shun Fang finished his sentence and then harumphed, as if he was trying release part of his pent-up anger that suddenly filled him when he mentioned Shun Long's assassination attack again, as he and Shunan walked to their room to rest. Shun Long then reached his courtyard, and walked straight towards the biggest room at the center. His room had 5 big wooden bookshelves inside it, all of them filled with all kind of books, with subjects that involved alchemy, formations, cultivation, etc. Shun Long directly locked the door as soon as he entered the room and walked toward the bed that was situated at the side of the room opposite to the bookshelves. He decided to sit down at the center of his bed with his legs crossed, and as he closed his eyes his thoughts drifted towards the triangular-shaped stone in his mind. Chapter 9: Explosive Increase in Cultivation. Shun Long finally sat down cross-legged and started meditating on his bed. As soon as he thought of the triangular-shaped stone, his mind instantly transformed into a stream that appeared inside his head, and he saw the stone floating with a golden book next to it. Shun Long was startled. He didn't know how that golden book had appeared next to the stone. He then remembered a sound that he had felt inside his brain earlier, and after that the feeling of his soul getting rid of a pair of shackles that had always weighted him down had come. Shun Long's consciousness moved towards the golden book, but there was no reaction no matter what he did. After trying for a while, he turned his sights back towards the triangular-shaped stone. As soon as his thoughts drifted towards it, the stone sucked in his consciousness and Shun Long felt his body appearing in an empty space. How many more secrets do you hold? Shenlong said as he thought of the triangular-shaped stone magical abilities, the Monarch's hourglass and the golden book. Then Shenlong tried to circulate the Monarch's hourglass art and an indistinct figure of an hourglass formed around his body. As soon as Shenlong followed the breathing technique of the Monarch's hourglass art, his meridians started absorbing the qi that came in contact with his body. This was how people of the qi circulation level cultivated. They absorbed the qi in the air that came in direct contact with their body through their meridians. They then circulated their cultivation technique and turned that qi into their own energy. Shenlong also followed this principle, but he kept directing all the energy he was absorbing into his right hand, slowly forming a ball of qi that kept growing each second. Only when Shenlong felt that the ball had finally reached saturation and wouldn't absorb any more energy did he finally stop and lifted it in the air as he pushed it in the space above his head. Imagine that you are inside the bottom part of an hourglass and you create a big ball in your hand and then you shove that ball in the opening hole above your head that exists between the top and the bottom part of the hourglass where the sand usually flows from. Well, in this particular hourglass there was no sand, only that ball that was too big to fit in that tiny hole, but Shenlong kept pushing and pushing until the ball compressed itself and finally went through the hole to enter the top part of the hourglass, sitting there peacefully as if it was floating above Shenlong's head. As soon as the ball went through the hole, Shenlong felt that all the energy inside the ball was coursing through his body and that it belonged to him now. Shenlong didn't stop and repeated this process 2 more times until a bang came from inside his body. Shenlong was drenched in sweat but was infinitely happy as he had finally reached the early rank 1 qi circulation stage. He didn't stop and kept repeating this process again and again until 5 hours had passed and he had finally reached the rank 2 peak of the qi circulation. Just a little more and he could reach the early rank 3, but Shenlong had noticed that every time he repeated the process of pushing the balls inside, he would also face the pressure from the previous balls of qi he had created, which made it harder to advance every time. Finally Shenlong decided to stop for today. He imagined himself leaving the triangular stone space and he found himself back in his room. His tired body finally went to rest after an exhausting day. When he woke up it was already past noon. Shenlong decided to fill his stomach in the dining hall before going to see his father. What shocked Shenlong was that Shunfang hadn't recognized that Shenlong was at the peak of grade 2 qi circulation already, and took him to his personal study so he could choose a cultivation technique for himself. Shenlong assumed that as long as he didn't intentionally expose his cultivation, others would have a hard time figuring out his realm. Shenlong didn't need another cultivation technique since he had the Monarch's hourglass art, but still decided to choose one for himself since he couldn't tell Shunfang about the Monarch's hourglass or he would have no way to explain how he got it, and in the end he settled for a technique called pulverizing gravity art. Shenlong then returned to his room and sent his mind to his spiritual space. He finally understood that the space the triangular stone was occupying in his mind was his spiritual space that the stone had forcibly opened when it had merged with him. Shenlong had also felt his spiritual strength increasing rapidly every time he advanced a realm last night. He sat down on his bed again and continued cultivating. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye and Shenlong was just a step away from reaching the 5th rank of qi circulation. If Shunfang learned about the speed of his advancements he would probably be frightened to death. A normal qi circulation cultivator would need at least 2 months to reach the early rank 4 level of qi circulation and Shenlong was already at rank 4 peak after only 5 days. 7 more days went by and Shenlong had reached the peak of rank 6 in qi circulation. Other people needed 7 to 8 months to reach the peak of rank 6 and Shenlong had already reached that level in just 12 days. That was a truly monstrous speed of advancement. Finally the pressure he felt from the previous balls of qi when as he tried to push the 55th ball of qi through the opening was too much and in the end he failed to enter the early rank 7. Shenlong understood that he couldn't yet fully control all of his strength. He needed to pressure his body more as just cultivating inside his room wasn't enough. Almost half a month had passed by now since Shenlong's assassination attempt near the Blue Forest, and Shun Long hadn't left his room once since he had picked a cultivation technique with Shun Fang. Servants would daily leave the food in front of his door, and even a rumor had started circulating inside the estate that their young master was mentally traumatized and afraid to leave his room after he came back with tattered clothes about a fortnight ago. Shun Fang and Shunan didn't try to put an end to the rumors of the servants, as that served as a perfect cover for Shun Long, who has been cultivating non-stop to make up for the lost time he had lost as a cripple in the past. Finally, after 13 days, Shun Long left his room and decided to go and find some guards to spar with so he would understand how to bring out 100% of his current power, which was precisely what he needed to do if he wanted to reach the early 7th rank of Qi circulation. In reality, if Shun Long hadn't reached a bottleneck in his cultivation, he would have stayed in his room until he reached the Earth rank or perhaps even higher, but now he understood that he first needed to adapt to his new strength after an explosive increase of his cultivation, before he tried to advance even further. Before Shun Long could find someone to spar, a maidservant of his mother came to inform him that the Lin family has come for a visit and his father has already requested his presence in the main hall. Shun Long dismissed the maidservant and headed to the main hall as he tried to recall any memories regarding the Lin family. Then, just before he reached the doors of the main hall, he suddenly stopped and mumbled to himself, "Oh, I have a fiancé? How interesting," he said as he then opened the doors and entered inside. Chapter 10: The Shameless Lin Family. Shun Long's feet just touched the main hall, and as the big 3 meters 9 feet doors opened, all eyes inside suddenly turned in his direction. As soon as Shun Long entered the hall, apart from his parents sitting at the main seats, he also noticed 3 elders of the Lin family and a middle-aged man all dressed in black clothes with blue stripes on their chests and sleeves sitting inside, along with a young and relatively pretty girl who was with them, with her back straight as she was seated on her chair, but unfortunately because of the straight posture she had adopted, people would instantly notice her flat chest. Everything looked normal at first glance, but Shun Long's past life experience had allowed him to pick on even the most indiscernible of hints, and from their body language how they had seated themselves a fair distance away from Shun Fang and Shunan while being the only guests here, Shun Long understood that this matter had more to it than what meets the eye. After all, the reason that Shun Long had survived alone for so long in his past life, was mostly because of his ability to judge people's intentions based on their slightest movements or gestures. Shun Fang and Shunan looked at Shun Long with a gentle gaze, but deep inside, Shun Fang's eyes held a trace of horror. Could it be that there is actually a problem, and that's why Long didn't leave his room for all these days, he asked himself, afraid of finding out the answer, as that may send him directly, from the heaven he has been experiencing these days, to the deepest depths of hell. It was only natural that Shun Fang hypothesized that there was a problem with Shun Long's cultivation and that he hadn't yet entered even the 1st rank of Qi circulation, otherwise how could his body possibly not emit any aura, if he had already reached it? Even if Shun Long had intended to conceal his aura, Shun Fang assumed that as a peak rank 9 Earth level cultivator he would have seen through it, and since he didn't feel anything now that Shun Long had entered the main hall, he naturally felt that his son must have met a problem. Deep inside him, all these days he and Shunan were patiently waiting, hoping for their son to enter at least the peak of rank 1 in Qi circulation, if not the early rank 2, but what he saw now was different to what he expected, and that's why he had assumed that some problem must have occurred in Shun Long's cultivation session. Shun Long had noticed the trace of shock that flashed inside his father's eyes, but acted as if he didn't even notice anything and smiled at him as he asked, "Father, did you ask for me? Nephew Shun has indeed grown even more handsome since the last time we met. Congratulations, ha ha ha. In the future you will definitely have droves of beauties waiting for you." The main hall instantly turned silent, and even a pin drop could be now heard. Shun Fang's face frowned and the look in his eyes darkened as he looked at the middle-aged man from the Lin family who had just spoken, and with a voice that betrayed his anger he questioned him. "Lin Shang, what the fuck do you mean by that?" Shun Fang had instantly noticed the meaning in Lin Shang's words. Shun Long would finding some beauties but not someone that belonged in the Lin family. Had these idiots come to ask him to annul the engagement? Of course the pretty girl sitting beside Lin Shang was Shun Long's fiancée in name, and also Lin Shang's daughter, Lin Wu. Lin Wu was already 15 years old, just 1 year younger than Shun Long, and as the daughter of the Lin patriarch she had already reached the rank 5 peak of qi circulation. Lin Shang was slightly ashamed, but as he thought of his gem of a daughter being stuck in a patch of crippled crap that couldn't cultivate, along with some other matters that had recently popped up, he steeled his resolve and said as he stood up from his seat. "Brother Fang, please listen to me. I know that Wu has been engaged to Shun Long for many years and that Shun Long definitely expected to marry her, but some matters have occurred, so I could only shamelessly come and ask you to please call off the engagement," Lin Shang said, and then continued in one breath. "Actually, Wu has decided to take the entrance test of the floating cloud sect that will take place 1 month from now in the palace of the imperial capital. The floating cloud sect will send their elders to personally come and accept outer court disciples. Everyone knows that your son is unable to cultivate due to his meridians, so it would be for the benefit of both of our children to call of the engagement, don't you agree? After all, they will be people of 2 different worlds, now that Wu will enter the floating cloud sect, and while your son won't be able to cultivate, my daughter will definitely end up leaving the Sky Fortune Kingdom this time. Fuck off to the side and don't call me Brother Fang." Shun Fang said furiously, his eyes having turned red from his fury, with veins bulging around his temples. His hair was flying behind him in the air as he unleashed his pressure and revealed his aura of a peak rank 9 Earth level cultivator, suffocating everyone inside the hall as he laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, you shamelessly come and beg me to call of the engagement? Ha 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 ha, you are right. You are truly shameless, and your face is so thick that my hand would probably redden from slapping you. Did you think that my house is a place that your tiny Lin family can act as they please at? How many times did you come over the years, and by using your status as in-laws of my family did you shamelessly beg me to help create formations in your home so your family's territory doesn't get annexed by high Earth rank level experts? Who was the person who begged me on his knees 6 years ago to have his daughter betrothed to my son? And now you want to shamelessly beg me to cancel their engagement instead of divorcing you so your daughter's reputation doesn't get tarnished? Ha 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 ha." Shun Fang laughed furiously and mockingly as he looked at the head and the 3 elders of the Lin family, whose faces had all turned deep red and their fists were all tightly clenched underneath the table, unknown if it was shame or fury that they were feeling. Shun Long then took a step forward towards the Lin family, and Shun Fang instantly retracted his pressure, allowing them to breathe, as Shun Long looked at the young girl and asked, "What do you think?" An elder from the Lin family with a long beard then raged as he stood up and shouted, "Audacious! This is not a place for children to..." But before he could even finish his sentence, Shun Fang's aura burst out again, and the elder that was only at the middle stages of the earth level was instantly swept off his feet from the pressure, and started coughing blood non-stop, as he dyed his clothes and beard red and his body flew in the air, crashing right at the center of the wall opposite to him, and the sound of bones cracking was heard as he crashed and then collapsed to the ground twitching. "This is not a place for you to speak, so shut your mouth," Shun Fang said arrogantly as he looked down from his seat, his gaze stabbing directly at the members of the Lin family. Shun Long then looked at his fiancée as he was expecting her to answer his previous question, and although this flat-chested girl didn't dare to look at Shun Fang, she was still bold enough to raise her eyes and meet Shun Long's. Shun Long understood everything from her gaze that was screaming arrogance and pride, as well as "I am superior to you and hence I look down on you." Unknown where he had found the courage or the strength to speak from, Lin Shang opened his mouth that was already leaking blood from the corner of his lips, thanks to the unrelenting pressure that Shun Fang had put them under, until he said, "Shun Long, you should cons." Lin Shang couldn't even finish his sentence before he ended up spurting a mouthful of blood, that coincidentally landed on his daughter's and dyed half her face a deep red color. Shun Long didn't even glance at him or his daughter, after he had noticed that contemptive gaze earlier in Lin Wu's eyes. He just turned around and shook his head as he walked towards the exit of the main hall and said in a heavily relieved tone as he patted his robes, "Thank God, for I almost ended up associating with a bunch of trashes this time." Father, destroy this engagement. Destroy it completely. Chapter 11 The Golden Book reacts. Shunlong had told his father to destroy the engagement completely, which showed how dissatisfied he was with the Lin family. But what he didn't know was that Shunfang was even more dissatisfied than him. He was burning with anger. The Lin family wanted to take advantage of him for so many years and then just come and ask for a mutual divorce. These idiots had to be dreaming. For a woman to get divorced by the man's side of the family was an extreme insult, as it deemed that woman unfit to marry. Even prostitutes had better reputations in this world than women who were engaged and then divorced before completing the marriage, unless that divorce was mutual from both sides. A divorce being mutual here doesn't refer to both families not wanting their children to marry each other, but it indicated that nothing had happened in between which would create any suspicions that the woman who had been betrothed to them had been unfaithful. Even prostitutes who sold their bodies did it for work, and the men who slept with them did it for enjoyment, but no man would ever want to marry a woman that was engaged with him and yet eyed another man secretly. That's why the Lin family went in such pains to beg Shunfang to mutually end this engagement, or Lin Wu's reputation would greatly suffer. But they underestimated Shunfang's fury this time. Not only did he kick them out of his estate, but in the next 2 days, word had spread throughout the entire Blue Forest city and even beyond that the Shun family would not accept Lin Wu as their daughter-in-law and that Shunlong had divorced her. Shunlong had already heard that the Lin patriarch's daughter had already been labeled as an unfaithful woman in nearly every household of Blue Forest City in the last 2 days, but frankly he didn't care. That woman's family abused their status as their in-laws to be for many years and then they wanted to end the engagement without even giving him a proper explanation. As if Shunlong was naive enough to accept a lame half-assed excuse like my daughter will go cultivate in the sex so you have to break up with her now that she decided that, but thank you for being a fat sheep that we could take advantage of for so many years. Shunlong easily saw through their lies and understood that there was definitely something else at play here, he just didn't know what yet. But one thing was for certain, his feelings for the Lin family couldn't drop any lower right now. He even suspected that the attack he had suffered half a month ago had something to do with the Lin family. He didn't have any clues back then, but now it definitely made sense when he tried to connect the dots. If he died to an assassination, the Lin family could definitely bring up the matter of mutually ending the engagement to Shunfang, as Shunlong would have already been dead, and Shunfang would have had no valid reason to refuse them then. The more Shunlong thought about it, the more it made sense and his eyes turned colder. Then he muttered, "You better not have had anything to do with this Lin family, or you better watch as I play you to death." Shunlong had spent the past 3 days constantly sparring with guards, while revealing more and more of his strength. In the end he had only revealed a cultivation level of an early rank 5. He understood that Monarch's hourglass was truly a heavenly technique. As long as he didn't intentionally circulate the power inside the balls of chi that he had created and stored in his body, others couldn't tell his level of cultivation, but Shunlong also assumed that if the disparity between his level and his opponent's was too big, then no matter what, he would be seen through in the end. So to avoid such a situation, he decided to not keep his cultivation hidden any longer, the cultivation of an early rank 5, of course. After all, he wouldn't reveal his full strength for no reason. It was already miraculous that he had reached the early rank 5 in half a month. Shunfang and Shunan already found this unbelievable. He wondered what would they think if he told them that he had already reached rank 6 peak, but in the end he decided not to. That speed of advancement was already too monstrous and he couldn't explain it, unless he divulged the existence of the Monarch's hourglass and the triangular-shaped stone, but these were his biggest secrets and it would surely bring him endless questioning from his parents. Also, even if he tried to explain the truth to them, it was unsure whether they would believe him, so in the end he decided not to tell them about his real cultivation level yet. After all, they were already extremely satisfied with his progress so far and he saw no harm in having a few secrets for his own. After he had revealed his new strength of an early rank 5, Shunlong could hold his own against a guard who was at the middle of rank 7 in chi condensation. This was shocking to both Shunlong and the guards as well as Shunfang, who happened to see them sparring. That was more than 2 full minor levels above Shunlong's own. If he had used his full cultivation, Shunlong estimated that he could probably fight against a peak rank 8 or even early rank 9. For someone who has been cultivating for only 15 days to fight against a late-stage chi condensation cultivator was already unheard of. But for that same someone to fight against an early rank 9 chi condensation who was already almost at the peak of his grade, then even the word crazy wasn't enough anymore. After Shunlong had his fill of sparring with the guards, he told his parents that he would stay in his room again for a few days and see if he can advance his strength any further, as he also mentioned that he was planning to participate in the floating cloud sex selection test that was taking place in the Imperial Palace in 1 month, the same test that Lin Shang had talked about. Shunlong's will was to become rich and strong so others couldn't control him, and he couldn't achieve this in a place as small as the Sky Fortune Kingdom. He had already heard from Shunfang that Sky Fortune Kingdom had more than 100 other kingdoms around it, and that's just what Shunfang knew. Who knew how big the actual number was? Could he spend his life in a place as tiny as the Blue Forest City? Originally Shunlong's parents didn't have any hope for him to participate in the floating cloud sex selection test that happened every 3 years, even when they had learned that their son's meridians were cured. But now that they had seen Shunlong's frightening speed of advancement, they were hoping that their son would escape this tiny place called Sky Fortune Kingdom and go cultivate in the behemoth known as the Floating Cloud Sect. Shunlong had returned to his room sitting cross-legged at the center of his bed, as he sent his spiritual strength to his spiritual space, so he would enter the triangular stone space once again, when the Golden Book showed a reaction for the first time. Chapter 12, Absorbing Knowledge. While Shunlong was sitting peacefully in a cross-legged position atop his bed, an apocalyptic scene was taking place inside his spiritual space. The Golden Book had started vibrating inside his spiritual space, and with every passing moment, it was doing so even more intensely. Every time the Golden Book vibrated, it was also slowly discharging some kind of heavenly aura which also nourished Shunlong's spiritual strength every time it came in contact with this aura. Shunlong then noticed a rune that resembled a lock, as it slowly emerged from the cover of the Golden Book, and it suddenly expanded and binded the Golden Book, almost as if the rune was trying to seal it. The book then started struggling desperately as it was trying to rid itself from the rune, but the rune didn't let up at all, firmly wrapping itself around the Golden Book. Just as the book was about to get suppressed by the rune, a tiny fluctuation came from the triangular stone that had stayed silent all this time, and a heavenly pressure radiated from it, that seemed as if it had come from the start of time. Then the stone sent a small stream of blue light straight towards the rune. The rune lock that was suppressing the Golden Book instantly released its hold as it tried to flee, but that tiny fluctuation from the triangular stone had already sealed time and space inside Shunlong's spiritual space, and the rune couldn't even move. It tried to instinctively vibrate and rid itself from the temporal restrictions that the little stone had placed around them, but before it could even do anything, the triangular-shaped stone instantly released a force that sucked the rune inside it, and then as the temporal restrictions retracted, as everything returned to normal, the previously suppressed Golden Book instantly erupted with a burst of golden light, as for the very first time, its cover instantly opened to reveal a blindingly bright white page. As soon as the white page was revealed, the book released a startling kind of force that tried to absorb Shunlong's spiritual strength inside it. A person's spiritual strength was practically their consciousness. If their consciousness was lost or destroyed, they would be practically dead. They would turn into a vegetable, a body without a consciousness. Shunlong tried to resist the force from the Golden Book by retracting his consciousness back to his mind. Fuck, what is this? Am I really going to become a vegetable after just reincarnating? He was terrified to see that his consciousness had already arrived in front of the white page, when the Golden Book instantly absorbed him. His entire spiritual strength had now left his body, which had now turned into an empty shell. Shunlong, however, was startled to see that he was not dead, but he was also shocked because he didn't have a corporeal body anymore. Not just a corporeal body, he didn't have anything aside from his spiritual strength, his consciousness, and his thoughts. There was nothing in front of him, just endless white that covered everything as far as the eyes could see. All of a sudden the scene in front of him changed. A plant appeared right out of nowhere, one that he had never seen before, and yet, just by looking at it this time, a sudden influx of information appeared in his brain that told him everything about the plant. How many stem cells the plant consisted of, how the plant would react in different temperatures, what are its leaves consisted of, how many years does it take for the plant to mature, what is needed for it to mature faster, what are the ideal conditions to nurture it, what are the plant's properties and how it can be used, along with all of its special individual properties. My brain feels like it will explode any second now, Shun Long thought as he suddenly felt that needles were piercing his consciousness. Sadly, this was only the beginning of his suffering. Ah! Shun Long suddenly roared, as billions of scenes flashed through his eyes, every scene including a plant that went from a seed to its full maturation stage until it changed again to another one. Every scene made Shun Long feel that he was about to die from the pain, and he couldn't even think anymore as information was practically getting crammed in his soul. The pain was so intense that at some point Shun Long felt that it might be better if he just stopped enduring this and gave up. Then he wouldn't have to feel this pain, he thought. Although he had felt pain in the past, and although he had suffered from hunger and physical pain by fighting or having his underdeveloped muscles aching and stinging him after overworking himself or suffering injuries, this was a completely different type of pain. The difference in intensity and quantity couldn't even be mentioned in the same breath as anything that he may have felt in the past. If all the pain he had felt in his past 20 years could be considered as a single drop in a bucket, then the pain he was feeling right now would be much more than an ocean. And the worst part was that this was a pain coming directly from his soul. A stab in your soul was thousands of times worse than a knife stabbing your heart. This was a type of qualitative difference that couldn't even be compared in the same breath with a flesh wound. Just as Shun Long felt that he should perhaps give up and that he had already reached his limit, the triangular stone buzzed and a scene replayed itself in Shun Long's brain. That's right. It's better to suffer now and give it my all to become strong after this than give up and die and have people trample upon me in my next life and the next one after that. No matter what, I will not give up, I will rather break than bend. Let's see who is stronger, this pain or myself, ha ha ha, come, he roared in the end while laughing, and his will was invigorated as he became clear-headed all of a sudden. This was both thanks to the little stone, replaying in his mind the scene when he swore his oaths outside of the Blue Forest, as well as to Shun Long's will to endure this crazy inhumane pain. But after a few hours, the pain was already so intense that Shun Long couldn't even speak, as his mind had finally reached a point where he just couldn't absorb more information and was already full. This wasn't a matter of whether he was willing to endure more pain, but whether his brain had any more mental capacity to absorb all this knowledge. All of a sudden Shun Long started to feel that his mind was now absorbing a strange kind of energy that made his soul bigger and stronger as his spiritual strength was improving at an unbelievable pace. Chapter 13, What's the test like? This was of course the same heavenly aura that the Golden Book was discharging earlier before it sucked him inside the white page. As Shun Long's consciousness absorbed more and more of this heavenly aura, his soul started to expand. His spiritual strength was also improving rapidly, becoming stronger and stronger by the second. This aura was immensely beneficial to a cultivator's soul and spiritual strength. 100 breaths of time had barely passed when Shun Long had already sucked in all the aura around his consciousness. Every second of it had felt like a heavenly massage on his soul, and he couldn't help but thirst for more, but that greedy feeling was instantly forgotten, and his mind met another wave of pain as soon as the blissful heavenly massage had stopped. Now that his soul had already expanded and could absorb more information, the Golden Book didn't hold back any longer. His mind capacity had already reached a level that was more than 10 times larger than before, and his mind was once again bombarded by scenes of plants. After an unknown amount of time, the Golden Book stopped cramming Shun Long's mind with information and he finally found a chance to catch his breath. Or so he thought. The Golden Book appeared in front of him, and a thing that horrified Shun Long happened. His mind was once again full of images along with a barrage of information just like before, but this time, it didn't involve any plants, but magical beasts. Shun Long wasn't just sweating when the second transmission of information ended, but he even felt that if he was in his body right now, he wouldn't even be able to take a breath before he sorted out all this information. Are you fucking trying to kill me? Shun Long wanted to roar at the Golden Book furiously, but when he saw that he was about to receive a third transmission, he nearly blacked out. Thankfully the third one was actually the last and also the shortest. The information it contained was about the human body, its illnesses, and more, but this didn't even take 0.1% of the information that he had first absorbed about the plants and medicines. Actually, even the magical beast information could barely reach 1% of the medicines. This is how immense the amount of information that Shun Long had first absorbed was. By the end of it though, Shun Long was so tired mentally that as soon as the Golden Book stopped transmitting information to his mind, he instantly blacked out. When he woke up he was so shocked, that his eyes bulged out. His body was shriveled, his eye sockets were sunken in and his hands and feet were so bony that you would be hard-pressed to find flesh no matter where you looked at. He was almost like a moving skeleton, and if he wasn't in the peak of rank 6 in chi circulation, he would have probably already died if his energy wasn't passively sustaining his body. He woke up and with a lot of effort he managed to walk all the way to his door, his clothes hanging off from his body like they were 3 or 4 sizes bigger than what he normally wore. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a young maidservant sleeping outside his room, on the cold hard floor. Shun Long felt some pity for her and walked towards her to wake her up, when the maid just happened to open her eyes. She screamed as she rolled a few meters on the ground before slowly standing up, her robe now full of dirt. "Why you, young master?" she asked stutteringly as she noticed Shun Long's previously handsome but now shriveled face, with his cheeks practically sunken in. Shun Long frowned while watching the maid's antics, seemingly unaware of his own horrible appearance as he ordered, "Prepare for me a huge meal, I am starving." He then walked with difficulty towards the dining hall. It was already the middle of the night, but the chefs were still awake, and in less than 30 minutes they had already prepared a huge meal, which Shun Long ended up wolfing down in less than 10 minutes. The chefs then had no choice but to keep preparing more as their young master wasn't even close to being full, but they barely managed to get in the new plates of food before Shun Long had completely devoured the previous ones. In the end it couldn't even be called a meal but an all-you-can-eat buffet, as 6 chefs were working to satisfy the appetite of their famished young lord. Even Shun Fang and Shunan were startled by the commotion their son had caused, but as they saw his shriveled body which was slowly regaining its original appearance as he ate more and more food, they decided to stay silent. All questions could be answered after Shun Long had filled his stomach. Shun Long hadn't even noticed that his parents had arrived in the hall and only stopped eating when he had eaten enough food for 100 people to fill their stomachs. Then Shun Fang arrived and sat down by his side as he asked, "What have you been doing in the past 25 days? What?" Shun Long couldn't believe that he had spent a whole 25 days digesting the information from the Golden Book. But when he thought about it, it made sense, especially with the amount of information that his head was filled with right now. Right now Shun Long probably knew everything about every single medicinal ingredient that existed in this world. Although he practically hadn't tried yet, his theoretical skills in alchemy should have reached a godlike level by now, considering that alchemy was based on combining 2 things, controlling the medicinal ingredients, and controlling the fire. Well, in reality it was much more complicated than that, but Shun Long couldn't wait to try and see if he was right about this guess he had regarding alchemy. He then answered, "I met with some problems but it's fine now, don't worry. I even advanced a full minor level in my cultivation." Shun Long then revealed his cultivation as an early rank 6 in chi condensation. He didn't know what the requirements to enter the floating cloud sect were, but he had assumed that he would need at least this much to pass the tests. Shunfang couldn't believe that his son had already advanced so much in just 1 month, and he even thought that he too would be willing to suffer being famished for a month if would mean a full minor realm leap in his cultivation. Shunlong was also glad that he could still make it in time for the floating cloud sect test in the imperial capital. If he had slept for too long and ended up missing the entrance test that takes place every 3 years, he would have definitely regretted it. Then Shunlong turned his head to look at his father, who was sitting beside him, and asked curiously, "Right, father, what's the floating cloud sect test like?" Chapter 14, The Way to Advance to a Rank 7. Shunfang looked at his son and smiled as he said, "Don't worry, according to the previous years you have 100% chance of passing." Shunlong looked at his father with an intrigued expression, but Shunfang said, "Okay, don't worry, I'll tell you what I know tomorrow, no need to look at me like that. Actually, I had hoped that we would have already left for the imperial capital a few days ago, but since you didn't come out from your room for so long, I could only wait until you were done with your cultivation before setting off." Shunlong was once again taken aback and couldn't help but ask his father this time, "Don't we still have a few days until the test in the imperial palace? The imperial capital isn't even 1 day away from our Blue Forest city, so we don't really need to rush, do we?" Shunfang looked at his son, who was sitting beside him and didn't know anything about the floating cloud sect, and said, "You are right, son, we don't really need to rush. Go and prepare whatever you need to take with you on this trip. You can also ask me for anything that you want, your father will definitely help you, don't worry." Shunlong looked at his father and his eyes moistened. Since Shunlong had arrived in this world, he was certain that he would have to do everything by himself, just like he did in his previous life, without ever counting on anyone for anything. He was already used to this mindset of his and wouldn't easily change it, but his newfound parents constantly showered him with care and attention, showing him the true meaning of the word family. Shunlong's father was enraged for his sake when the Lin family had come to ask them to annul his engagement. His mother had him constantly on her mind, sending maidservants to send him food, and having them report back to her, her son's condition and if he had asked or needed anything else. Even a few moments ago, when the maidservant responsible of watching Shunlong's room came and informed them that the young master was now all bones, Shunlong's parents instantly rushed to the dining hall in the middle of the night, worried about their son. And when they finally confirmed that he was now recovering through eating massive amounts of meat and drinking more than a gallon of water in one go, they didn't even ask him any questions about what had happened to him. They were just glad that he was fine. To most people, this may seem how parents should act for their children, but to Shunlong, who had never felt familial love before, these actions were invaluable to him. A feeling of warmth spread inside him, as Shunlong watched his parents moving to their courtyard, while he decided to return and cultivate in his room instead. Breaking through a cultivation barrier wasn't easy, and Shunlong finally noticed the problem that was holding him back all this time, and he couldn't break through the 7th rank of Qi circulation. Every rank of Qi circulation needed Shunlong to condense 3 balls of Qi for each level respectively of early, middle, and peak, for a total of 9 levels in each rank according to the requirements of the Monarch's hourglass. Shunlong right now was at the peak of the 6th rank, which meant that he had already created and condensed 54 balls of Qi above his head. Although it was harder to push in every single ball of Qi that came after the previous one, it still shouldn't have been this hard. Yet every time he created one ball just like he had done in the previous levels, he would fail to push it inside, and its Qi would eventually dissipate into thin air. But this time Shunlong decided that if the balls of Qi didn't have enough power, then he would imbue even more Qi inside them while creating them. And this random guess of his had left him speechless when he tested it. Shunlong noticed that the balls of Qi that would previously be easily filled until they were saturated and couldn't hold any more Qi inside them, were now turned into starved animals that needed more and more Qi to fill themselves. Finally, after 3 hours, Shunlong had managed to condense a new full-powered Qi condensation ball, and he slowly pushed it in the space above his head. Finally, after 2 more hours of bitterly trying, a 55th ball of chi had appeared in the space where the rest of his chi balls were. More than 5 hours had already passed and morning would soon arrive, but Shenlong wanted to try one more crazy thing, something that no one in the chi condensation had ever tried. I wonder if I can put even more energy in the balls of chi I had previously created and have them all reach the quality of this one, he said as he looked at the brightest chi ball he had created up until now, the 55th ball. When Shenlong had fought with the guards of the estate, he had already found out that even if the balls of chi exhausted all their energy, they wouldn't disappear. They would still remain in the place above his head, and when he entered a meditative state and circulated the monarch's hourglass, he would just need to refill them with the chi that he absorbed from the air. Shenlong decided to try out his hypothesis in the very first ball of chi he had condensed, and he was glad to find out that his energy did actually enter the ball as it slowly made it stronger. After 3 more hours, Shenlong, exhausted, went to sleep, yet he only slept for 2 hours before his father came to wake him up. It was finally time to leave the Blue Forest City. Chapter 15: Secrets of the Floating Cloud Sect. Shenlong woke up and looked at his father and mother, who had just barged into his room. Shunfang looked at him with a smile on his face as he asked, "Are you ready?" Shenlong understood that they were leaving, and although he didn't know why his father was in such a rush to reach the imperial city, he didn't question him for now as he took a deep breath and said, "Actually, I need an alchemist's cauldron, not too big in size so I can carry it with me, but the higher the grade the better." Shunfang was a bit astonished. His son hadn't even started to cultivate for a year and he already wanted to study alchemy. That's like a toddler trying to run before they can walk. Shunan looked at her husband and said smilingly, "Hee, you can finally get rid of that old thing." As soon as Shunfang heard her words, his eyes twitched. "Old thing? I spent more than a month refining that cauldron, you know." Forget it," he said as he personally went to fetch a bowl-sized cauldron. As soon as Shenlong's eyes met the cauldron that Shunfang was holding in his arms, he instantly understood, although he was neither an alchemist yet nor a formation master, that this small cauldron was extraordinary. It was emitting some small fluctuations without even being activated yet, so who knew how strong the formations engraved inside it actually were? Shunfang saw the look in his son's eyes, and with pride he puffed out his chest as he looked at his wife and gave her a smug look. Shunan smiled at Shunfang's amusing behavior and said, "Your father took nearly 2 months to refine this small cauldron and create its runic inscriptions. The formations engraved inside it are all at the peak of bronze grade 3, and they are even on par with some silver grade 1 cauldrons. However, because your father isn't a silver grade formation master yet, he couldn't perfectly control the power of some of these formations when he inscribed them, and that's why the aura of the cauldron isn't completely concealed." Although Shunan had worded it like that, Shenlong could understand how precious this cauldron truly is. His father most likely couldn't bear to sell it, as it was a priceless treasure for any alchemist below the silver grade. Shunfang was actually happy that his son wanted to practice alchemy. He was just afraid that he would have too much on his plate and that could potentially delay his cultivation. Nevertheless, he was happy to hand his most prized creation to his own son. He walked up to Shenlong and gave him the cauldron nonchalantly as he said, "Actually, you don't need to take anything else with you aside from this cauldron and some clothes. Come find me whenever you are ready to go." Then Shunfang walked outside of Shenlong's room, with a wide grin on his face. Shunan was happy for her husband, as it was rare for him to be in such a good mood, but when she thought of her only son leaving them for what would potentially be a very long time, muffled sobbings were heard from her mouth in the end. Shenlong understood what Shunan was feeling. It was hard to watch your child leave, but he had to steel his heart and leave in order to go to higher places. He knew that he couldn't stay behind in Blue Forest City, or else he would never be able to fulfill his oaths to himself. Shenlong sorted out his thoughts and then he put a gentle smile on his face as he walked towards his mother. "It's not like I'm leaving forever, you know. I'll return when I'm stronger in the future." Shunan hugged her son as she said, You also have to bring me a bride the next time you return. Then she put a bright smile on her face and continued. Hopefully someone that isn't flat-chested like that Lin girl. Also hurry up, your father is waiting for you in the carriage. Shunlong then smiled again at his mother's words, and he grabbed some spare clothes, along with the bowl-sized cauldron, and put them all in a medium-sized wooden chest. He then walked to the carriage. His father had been waiting right outside of the Shun estate's gates. He turned his head back once, to take a last look at his home, the first home he had in this world. Shunlong's handsome face then resolutely turned, as he looked forward and said to the driver, "Let's go." The horses started neighing as 10 minutes later they had already left the Blue Forest city. Shunlong and Shunfang were chatting, when Shunlong asked, "Father, why did you insist on leaving for the Imperial City so hurriedly when we already have plenty of time ahead of us?" Shunfang looked at his son and said, "Do you know what the floating cloud sex test is like?" This question left Shunlong a bit stumped, who eventually shook his head. Shunfang continued and said, "Actually the test itself is really simple, as long as you are below 20 years of age, and at the peak of the middle level of Qi condensation, then you can definitely pass. You are already an early rank 6 Qi condensation cultivator, which means you are at the peak of the middle level, so you don't have to worry about the test. What you should be worried should be what comes after the test." "What do you mean?" Shunlong asked puzzledly. "I myself don't know too much details about the floating cloud sect, but I have heard one important thing. The more connections you make before reaching the sect, the more beneficial it will be for you. Actually Lu Wen, Alchemist Master Lu from our Blue Forest city, will also participate in the test to enter the floating cloud sect this time. However, the test he will be taking requires someone to be at the peak of the early stages of the Earth grade and to be below 30 years of age. As for why the need to build connections before reaching the sect, even your father doesn't know that. My guess is that you will find out once you finally reach the floating cloud sect." Shunlong and Shunfang's journey went as expected, and in just half a day, they could see it clearly in the distance. They had finally arrived at the Imperial City. Part 1 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.